So I'm going to talk about contemplation, and I'm going to use the story of a professor who teaches at Stanford, and she's also a psychologist, and she was giving counseling to an undergraduate student who had come to her. She was a South Korean student at Stanford, brilliant student, able to do many, many things with her studies, but she was having trouble with anxiety and nervousness that she couldn't figure out. So she went to Dr. Anna Lemke for advice, and Dr. Lemke starts to walk her through, like, okay, why is this happening? How does your day go? Like, what do you do? And so the student tells her, well, I go to class after I have breakfast, I walk through the campus. Oh, how is that walk? Well, I'm always listening to something. I always have my earbuds. I'm always being entertained by some podcast or something funny. And she said, well, what if you unplugged from that? And the student responded and said, kind of nervous, like, well, why would I do that? And so Dr. Lemke's realizing, okay, maybe there's something here. Well, try this. Let's experiment with this. This could be a way, because sometimes when you kind of just look at the world and kind of let your mind wander a little bit and enjoy and kind of take in a scene, a yard, a field, a building, that can quiet the mind. And so students said, okay, it doesn't sound like I would like that, but I'll try it. So she tries it, and they meet a few times over the succeeding weeks. And after some time, this student reports that indeed this helped a lot, that unplugging from the constant digital entertainment or distractions that she was used to and that she thought that she needed, that this was helping her. And so what we're talking about today is that capacity to contemplate. And we have to act and to contemplate. These are kind of two modes of human existence that different philosophers and theologians have written about over the centuries. And I would submit that our culture today is not good at letting us contemplate. It kind of doesn't give us that chance to exercise that part of our brain and our body and our attention span. Our attention spans keep getting progressively shorter because we need a new thing to look at. And when we get bored, we can just look at the next thing or switch to the next screen or scroll down further. Whereas boredom can actually be this great healthy thing where we're confronting the world and letting it enrich our experience kind of just organically or kind of naturally. Like that woman, and she said that when she was walking down the campus that she noticed some of the trees were really beautiful. And so she started to take an interest in that, and she started to notice there's some birds in those trees and they have some interesting bird calls. And so she started to see the world a little bit differently, and she also was able to quiet her mind. And this is what another professor, Zena Hitz, H-I-T-Z, has written about. She's a philosopher, and she wrote a great book that I read last year called Lost in Thought: The Hidden Pleasures of the Intellectual Life. And she says that just this, that we need to develop, well, we don't need to, but those of us who are interested in it will benefit greatly from developing our intellectual life, from reading books, long books that take hours, maybe 7, 10, 15 hours to read, that being lost in thought, getting lost in these great books and these ideas is extremely helpful to us. And it is something that can quiet the mind and help us to contemplate the world. And so what I'm suggesting is what I have called the paper books cure. Let's say like a printed book, and I'll grab one in a minute. Like grabbing a book and a pencil and a notebook and spending 45 minutes reading a day, or maybe just 15 minutes a day for 3 or 4 or 5 days a week will be a great exercise of contemplation that will help you quiet the mind, grow your attention span, get attached to the beauty of these stories or philosophical ideas. I'm talking about both literature and philosophical or critical ideas, psychological ideas, like those kinds of books, history books. Getting into a flow state, which is an ideal thing. Like psychologists have analyzed the flow state when you're kind of pushing up against a challenging task, but you're exercising your abilities and you're kind of growing in the ability, and you are improving yourself and growing in knowledge. And then there's a great satisfaction that comes from that. And so, and I'm not saying that we should just give up on the screens. I'm using screens now. Obviously, this is going to be put on YouTube and Spotify. Here's what I would suggest. Keep 30% of your reading on computers and phones, 30% on audiobooks or things you listen to, but keep the rest of it, what's left, 40% for paper books. We need all three, and we need to know when to use which, and we'll talk about that. There is a crisis. There's a crisis where in the United States, studies have shown that there's a 40% decrease in the last 20 years of leisure reading by American adults. That's a lot. That's a crisis. In the OECD studies, they see that in most developed countries, literacy and even numeracy, like working with numbers, is declining. And people, instead of like engaging their minds and kind of being more active, and I was talking about active and passive, well, this is a different type of activity. By being an agentic reader or thinker, that will enable us to grow as persons more, whereas the digital world, its entertainment mode, wants us to be purely receptive. They're just beaming information into our eyeballs and into our earballs, into our earplugs, earbuds, and that we're just kind of pure receivers. That's what like Amazon and Facebook and YouTube want. They want us to be purely receptive, just taking in content. Reading books will militate against it, will give us much more freedom than that will. Studies show that just 1 in 3 children say they enjoy reading, which is down from 36% from 20 years ago. 39% of 9-year-olds read for fun, which is down from 49% from 1984. 16% read daily for pleasure, which is down from 28% from 20 years ago. So anyway, there's all these studies are coming to the same conclusion that reading is decreasing rapidly, and then we have the Flynn effect, which it kind of sounds funny, but it's making us dumber because. And the IQ measure is not a perfect measure, but it's a very powerful measure, the IQ. And IQ studies across in Western countries, in Western Europe and North America, had what was called the Flynn effect, which was basically almost every year in the 20th century, almost every year, the IQs of our aggregate would go up, almost every year for that whole century. Well, since 2010, it's been steadily going down. So our capacity to reason, to think logically, to do complex thought is declining. So, and what's the difference between a video and a book? And let me see if I can go to my little drawing board here. I need to make sure my camera is working correctly. Okay, push that forward. And so we have video, and we've got a book. And so these are both awesome, great ways to learn. I love using YouTube. I use it all the time. I love other sources of videos. But in those videos, whether that's a YouTube or a TikTok or an Instagram, what is the discourse? It is to assert emotionally, strongly, I'm against this. What is a book foregrounding? It's about slow, step-by-step, reasoned argument. And so that's a different mode of giving that information. It's the same information, but and obviously you could have a slow, reasoned argument in a video, but this medium, insofar as the medium is the message, the medium fosters this type of information. You want to go viral. You want to have this like strong assertion. The best thing is anger, actually. These are the things which get most viral. And it's focused on like the charisma of the speaker, their looks, their image, the music and the lighting. This one is more like you can interrogate it. You can question it more slowly. You can pause it. A video, obviously you can pause a video, but usually you kind of watch it through. A book, I mean, obviously best thing is when you're even taking some notes in your book or on a side in a little notebook. And we face being bored. And that's a great thing that helps us grow our attention span. Whereas when you hit boredom here, you scroll away. You have that option. And this is preventing us from deep thinking, deep reading, critical thinking with a longer attention span. And so this is one way that we can grow our capacity to think by using the paper books. This is an activity that will enrich your life, your intellectual life, in the business world or in the world of ideas, or if you're an artist in your creative world, in your friendships, deepening friendships, having more to talk about than just the sports or the weather or fashion, to have deeper stories at our beck and call so we can kind of bring them into conversation. And our ideas about democracy, about overcoming challenge, about dealing with anxiety, things like that, things that matter. And so the paper books are what? They're going to help us have deeper conversations. A friend of mine was talking about when he was applying to graduate schools in psychology, and they had invited these applicants to come to campus and meet the professors and meet some other graduate students. So they had a dinner, and the graduate students gathered with this professor, and my friend was kind of like looking around, so who's going to talk? And nobody sort of had much to talk about. So he said, well, I've been reading this really good book. Can I tell you about it? And he started to tell this story to the professor and to the other students. And the other students were kind of like just like listening along, and like they didn't have much to say. I mean, you'll have way more to say if you've read books. A TikTok video can only give you like a couple lines, whereas you can talk about a book like for hours, obviously, or at least for a few minutes, and have a much more interesting conversation. And so we need to have a way of fostering our reading brain. The reading circuit in the brain. It's been said, there's a professor, Marianne Wolf, who's an expert on this, on the reading brain. She wrote a book called Reader Come Home, and how the reading brain works in a digital world. And she says that reading was not a natural thing. Like speaking is a natural thing. We have circuits in our brain geared towards speaking, and we've got circuits in our brain geared to seeing. We can kind of interpret what we're seeing in the world. We had to really work hard to develop the reading circuit in the brain. It's a big advance in our capacity to think, and we can even say, like, when you start to have literacy in the sense of like writing down books, writing down texts, what happened? Well, at least in many places, like ancient Greece, you had the birth of philosophy, like much deeper thought. You had the birth in Israel of much deeper theology and kind of religious thought, or in Buddhism in the East, or in many other cultures in that age called the axial age. It gave birth, literacy that is, to super growth in many, many cultural areas. And we've built on that for the last like 2,500 years. We are in danger of slowly losing that, or actually maybe rapidly losing that, at least for many, many people in the world. And so it's not about, like, again, not throwing away your phone, throwing away audiobooks. I love listening to audiobooks when I'm driving. I've got a long trip coming up later this week, 2.5 hours. I want to listen to this audiobook. Which one was it? I can't remember. I was listening to The Anxious Generation, which was another great audiobook. But I got another one too. But yeah, so that's a great thing to have, audiobooks. But we still need, as I said, 40% of your reading, keep it for the printed paper books, to save our deep reading, our deep thinking. And so, again, I mean, I started my chart here, and I guess let me do a few more additions to it. I think this will work if I go like this. Let me just check my camera. Okay. But yeah, thinking this through further, we have, again, the book and the video, two very valuable modes or media. But the book, it's going to take 11 hours. Let's say a book about Martin Luther King Jr. In the video, you do it like in an hour. And that's got a great advantage. Sometimes that's what you want. You just want to get the 1 hour version. But this, because it's going to take 11 hours, you're going to read it over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, your memory and imagination are exercising in a way that's way richer and better. And this can help us really into that deep thinking, as I was saying before. And I would add symbolic thinking, a way of thinking that's beyond just the kind of literal way. You're interrogating it, you are challenging it with your brain. Obviously, you can challenge the video, but there's not enough time really to do that. Many times, and there's a kind of flood of documentaries coming out now because it's so easy to make them, but so many of them you can't trust because they were made in a half-baked fashion. This forces slowness. And again, like that young woman from Stanford, slowness is good. Sometimes we want to be fast, sometimes we're in a hurry, and that's good. But we also need slow thinking. We need to calm the mind. When's the last time you had a quiet mind? And I ask myself that question, and I realize I don't have it nearly enough. And I'm the one who needs to read this, who needs to do the paper books cure first more than anybody else. But anyway, I'm encouraging you to as well. And the video is great. We can even add, let's say, like an online article, which is designed for what? Skim it fast. That is what it's good for, and that's great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You're not looking for the aesthetics, you're not looking for the beauty of the story. You're looking for the beauty when you are doing it slowly, when you're doing it with a book. Sometimes the book itself is beautiful. I love putting books on the shelf. Like, it's a cultural experience, having a book, having bookshelves, walking past them, browsing, going back, looking at a book you read 10 years ago, going back and looking at it. It's such a rich experience that we want to keep. And so I want to just emphasize that the medium is the message, as Marshall McLuhan said in the 60s, social scientist, meaning that whether I'm getting the information, let's say I have the same information, like the life of Martin Luther King Jr., I can get it through TV, I can get it through an audiobook, I can get it through a paper book, I can get it through a lecture. Those are all good. What the paper book offers, though, is precisely this richer, deeper, longer, slower experience, whereas the other forms are designed more just get the information quickly. Like, I go to YouTube, give me the 10-minute version of this. And that's great. Sometimes I want just the 10-minute version of this book about Martin Luther King Jr. And I get it, but that's not the same as the 11 hours, 12 hours of reading the whole book, experiencing it, taking notes, going back to it, talking about it with other people, and so forth. And so one of the things that pains me is the TLDR, too long, didn't read. And obviously, there's sometimes when that is the case and we don't want to read like a long email, but we want to read these long books. These are a great treasure that we want to keep up with. And it's about being biliterate. And I'm getting this from Marianne Wolf. And let me just put the word down here. And it's kind of like being bilingual. I mean, like, I'm somewhat bilingual. I can speak Spanish and English, and I can understand a little bit of Italian and a little bit of German and French. I can't really speak those languages, but let's stick with English and Spanish, which I can speak. And so, like, in some of my environments, I realize this is where I speak Spanish, and I speak Spanish with my Hispanic friends and their families. And it's interesting, actually, when you switch into a different language, I feel like my whole body switches, because I have to change the shape of my mouth, and you sort of, even the way you gesture in Spanish is different than the way I gesture in English. And so, yeah, it's a different language, and that's good. Well, same thing with reading. I want to switch into slow mode when I've got the paper book and I've got my pencil and I have my time and I'm sipping my tea. I'm getting into the beauty of the story, the aesthetics. Whereas when I want the 10-minute video, I'm in a hurry and I'm just skimming. I don't need everything. I don't need beauty. I just need the facts. Just give me the big facts so I can get it quickly, or I can get it from ChatGPT. That's wonderful. I love using AI for those purposes, but I don't want to use it for everything. I want to keep that paper book. And the other thing is that when I'm on, anytime when I'm on a screen, that medium, let's say my laptop, is designed to kind of make us impatient so that we want to scroll away and look for something more interesting. The paper book has that beauty there where you cannot scroll away. You're just stuck with it. And that's great. That's such a wonderful exercise. And it forces me to be more patient. And sometimes I gotta like reread a paragraph and like take notes on it. Like, what's he saying here? What's she saying here? That's such a rich experience that I don't want to lose. So yes, to go into each reading event and choose, am I gonna do the 10-minute video, or am I gonna do the 10-hour book? Am I gonna do the 1-hour article? Like, choose, that's like triliterate, I guess. There's like, choose which literacy of reading do I want to engage in. And so Yeah, and this will help us to think for ourselves. One of the dangers with all this digital media, if we're into it all the time, I mean, I love digital media, I'm not against it, but if we're using it exclusively, then we are impatient. We don't want to think for ourselves. Just tell me what the answer is. That's what ChatGPT can do, or Claude, or YouTube. Whereas the long book, the long form, even like the long podcast, and that's like a kind of nice thing that people are discovering. I'm kind of really happy with long form podcasts. That's that advantage, that you will have that growing patience, that growing effort, that growing critical thought that I want to have. Aristotle, the great ancient Greek philosopher, said that a good society fosters 3 lives in people. A life of knowledge and productivity, so like working. A life of entertainment and leisure, like art and painting. And a life of contemplation, which he considers the highest, and I don't know if it's the highest, but it's awesome. It's like just thinking about the deepest questions. The meaning of life, what is beauty, what is truth, how do I pursue a fulfilled life, what does it mean to be fully human, how can we combat the kind of loneliness epidemic, and these big questions. Like, books are going to have a huge role in helping us to address them, to think them calmly. Works of art and literature. Like just yesterday, I was at the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, and you look at a painting, and it's framed, and sometimes you're just not sure what it is. We were looking at, like, I think it was Kandinsky. Is that his name? Vasily Kandinsky, the Russian guy. Very abstract. And you read the little description, and it sort of helps you see, okay, here's the theory he was applying in this painting, and then it starts to make sense to you, but you got to sort of sit with it for like a couple of minutes just to kind of like start to make sense of it and see the beauty that's there, the creative thought that went into it. And so yeah. So what I want to talk about here is an experiment called, well, there's a video made of this experiment called Gorillas in Our Midst. Not gorillas in the mist, but gorillas in our midst. And this video is available on YouTube. You can look for it, where a professor was doing a study with some subjects, some people, and wanted to see, like, what do we see when we look at the world? When we're looking for something ahead of time, like sometimes we're sort of looking for a specific thing, and that allows us to focus on that thing. And it also sometimes blinds us from other things. And our attention is huge in terms of how we take in the world. I mean, the world is just the world. It's an objective reality. I believe in objective reality. But how I attend to the world, how our attention is focused, really changes what comes in. And so in this experiment, the professor made a video where there was 2 teams with white shirts and teams with black shirts, with a basketball, and their job was to pass the ball to each other and keep it from the other team. So they passed the ball, and then once in a while, like, the other team would steal the ball, and then they would pass the ball to their teammates. And so they're playing this game on a kind of a basketball field, basketball court, and in the middle of the game, a person in a gorilla suit, a black gorilla suit, walks across the screen into the middle of the field, of the court, bangs their chest a little bit, and then keeps walking. And when they told people, they didn't tell them that there was going to be this person in the gorilla suit. They told them, here's what we need you to do. Count how many times the team in white passes the ball. So they're watching the team in white. Okay, there's one, there's two. They're counting it, but because they're so focused on that, when at the end, they asked those participants, "So did you see anything unusual in the game?" And the majority of the people said no. I counted 16 passes, whatever it was. You didn't see the gorilla? What gorilla? And some of them did see the gorilla, but some of them, more than half of them, did not. Why? Because their attention was focused on the passing of the ball. The reality was the same, the objective reality of the person in the gorilla suit, but what we see, how we perceive the world, is hugely impacted by what we're expecting to see. We tend to not just see the world like, here I am, a brain, I intake the information, I got the world. It's much more complicated than that. It's much more about what am I expecting, what are the stories that I have heard ahead of time as I go into this experience. That's why the arts and stories are so crucial to shaping our psyche and our consciousness and our attention so that we know what to look for and how to really see what's going on in the world more fully. We always see what's going on in the world as long as our eyes are open, but am I seeing it as fully as I can? And so if I sit facing the world, kind of looking out at the world, listening to the world, seeing, feeling, all my five senses, apparently there are 16 million bits of data that come in every second. Vision, sound, smell, feel. And that's all also extended through time, so there's like millions and billions of data coming in. We can only attend to like, let's say 10 bits of information. So we're seeing like this really reduced level of information, of data. And so it's sometimes called predictive processing. We're sort of predicting what we're going to see. Well, a lot can be said about that, so we'll talk about that another time. And so we need to have cognitive patience so that we can get into a more deep, more complete vision of what's going on. Okay, and so good. We talked about biliteracy. I mean, the monoliteracy of always being in screen mode, of just wanting quick information. Think about when you are full of anxiety. Think about when you're in a rush all the time. And our culture tends to put us in a rush all the time. We're always in a hurry. Try to force yourself to not hurry. It's a great exercise just to improve your life, your quality of life, but it'll also foster your capacity to think. And so the book will give us that. We also have just even the motor motion, and like studies have shown, and I have to look up, I saw an article recently, studies show that the act of writing with your pen or pencil will foster a deeper memory of what's going on and what you're reading or listening to, as opposed to typing. There's something about the book. It's a great three-dimensional object. It has a sound, it has a smell, it has a feel. Sometimes books are beautiful. It's good to get beautiful books. I mean, and then you can really enjoy even the aesthetics of it. And so yes, these are things that we want to do. And we'll reclaim our attention span. Our attention spans, studies have shown that in the last 20 years, attention spans went from like 2.5 minutes to just 45 seconds now. So it's decreasing rapidly. And you can and they did this by sort of tracking what people's computers were looking at work. So a lot of people do work on computers, so they can see like how quickly do they shift between activities or screens or windows on their desktop. And so good. And yeah. And I guess I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again, which is the story of a reading retreat. And this is something that I want to develop further. It's something that's time consuming, it's something that's difficult to do, and I've only done it once really. But I'm going to do it again, and the idea is a reading retreat. So the idea is we did this. I organized just through some friends, through a church group. We got access to a house in the hill country of Texas here, 3 hours away. And I think the 3 hours actually is, well, for me it's significant because you're either going to go or you're not. Like, it's not just 45 minutes away. Like, this is a long distance away. You've got to kind of commit to this whole weekend thing. And so you go there Friday night, you get there kind of late, go to sleep, and we had copies of The Lord of the Rings, the second book, The Two Towers. And everyone knew the basic story, so we were just reading the second book instead of the first. And we had breakfast, and we had like an hour and a half of reading time. Everyone just went to their corner, or they sat outside and they read. And some of them had pencils, some of them just read purely. But it's all on printed books. And then we took a break and had a little conversation, and then we read another hour and a half, and then we break for lunch, and we talked about the book. Okay, what did you think about this? Well, I thought, so then we have the conversation. So we're having and we didn't just talk about the book, we also talked about your weekend and so forth. Okay, finish breakfast, clean up, another hour and a half of reading. And then this time we took a break where we did a hike in the wilderness. I mean, just like the nice state park there. And so we had more conversation, somewhat about the book, somewhat about just our lives, enjoying nature. So getting into nature is a crucial way of fostering our attention span, of fostering our appreciation of beauty, and getting used to being away from the screens. And so I think beauty is huge here. I think nature is huge in terms of helping us get these things. And so then we come back, we have dinner, and then in the evening after dinner, we have a script of what we were reading. It was actually a radio play done by the BBC, so I had the script from that. So we could basically act it out like a play. I've got you're Frodo, you're Sam, you're the orc, you're Aragorn, and so forth. So we acted out the scene where Boromir gets hit by all these arrows, and we see Boromir die, and the guy really hammed it up, and that was great. We had this acted out scene of what we had been reading. So we're experiencing it both on the text, but also in a kind of ritualized storytelling, like the theatrical part. Now that's not everyone is able to do that, but we had that great experience of getting deeper into the text by living it as a kind of theatrical. And then we set up and we drank and we smoked. I mean, you shouldn't always smoke, but anyway, we were smoking cigars. And next day we got up and had a little more reading in the morning. And then we had the kind of cherry on top, which was this. We had an hour of silence, and you're not allowed to do anything except think. And so you could journal. So I had a little notebook, and I had my pencil, and I kind of walked around in the backyard and took notes and walked and looked at nature. And oh my gosh, I had so many ideas kind of rushing into my brain and into my consciousness that I didn't know I had, because I never have silence where there's nothing to do but think. And so that's another thing that, well, you don't need the paper books to do that, but it kind of goes along with paper books, like just to get into silence, to get into a mode of attention where you're in quietness, slowness, and allowing your thoughts to just emerge as they come. So I'm gonna pause it there. We'll pick this up next time. The paper books cure. I'm also working on these videos. Hopefully I'm gonna get better at making these videos. So stay tuned on hopefully improving quality. And we'll see you next time.